Everything is connected. This is more than an abstraction, but rather a truth that we can draw upon to decipher the nature of reality. The greater our capacity to see the parallels that exist between all aspects of the universe, the more everything can come together. For example, here are various magnetic objects interacting with each other where their fields are mapped by iron filings. At first glance, and even with careful study, it may appear as if these pictures only tell us about physics. However, such an analysis is limited in that we have unknowingly confined what type of information can be extracted by this approach. All systems function the same. For example, if we look at these magnets through a different lens, we can expand it so that we can essentially see in another dimension. Like going from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions, an entire realm of possibility can be opened when we consider what the interactions of these magnets tell us about other systems. Consider 2 scenarios, an argument and a classroom. Surely these have nothing to do with magnets, right? In the first interaction of 2 magnets, we see their fields colliding and a barrier preventing the transmission from either to the other being formed. Each magnet has 2 poles, an input and an output, a transmitter and a receiver. When like poles are oriented towards each other, repulsion occurs. The same interaction is at play in an argument. We are each like magnets, transmitters and receivers. Depending on our orientation, the way we are looking at things, our fields can be either in opposition or in alignment. When they are in opposition, the circumstances then dictate the outcome. 2 magnets can be in opposition and have no observable effect on the other. This is the case when they are distant. For example, if 2 people of strong polar opposite political views begin to talk, they can get along just fine while the views stay out of the picture. If it begins to come to the forefront through conversation where they get to know the other's view, tension increases similar to like poles of 2 magnets approaching one another. When 2 magnets have their like poles in opposition and are pressed together, then they repel one another. If force continues to be applied, then the tension remains, and dependent on the degree of closeness and force applied, an argument of various forms arises. This can be a disagreement, a shouting match, a fist fight, or any other degree of argumentation. The particulars are circumstantial, but the underlying process is universal. The same can be applied to people who look at something the same way. When both parties are looking in the same direction, then their fields are in alignment. As a result, when they interact and get close to each other, then they will attract. This closeness is an important characteristic. Even when 2 magnets are in alignment, they will not attract unless they get close enough. The same is the case for 2 people. If we both find something of pinnacle importance where the same ideal drives us, then it does not bring attraction without proximity. We could be physically proximal and even interact, but if these shared interests remain unknown, then attraction will not occur. The universe itself is composed of an endless array of systems that interact in these ways. To label any individual part as a single thing is an approximation. We ourselves are not limited to any individual component of what makes each of us distinct. In other words, we are each like a universe unto ourselves. We may agree on certain aspects and disagree on others. Due to this, different aspects of our beings can attract while others repel, like various groupings of magnets in alignment and opposition. What then is the overall result depends firstly on the aspects of ourselves which have gotten closest versus remained most distant. For example, if we attempt to describe the motion of an object on Earth, then we can do so to an extremely high precision by accounting for the Earth's gravity. Such an analysis does not account for all other known influences, regardless of their impact, and is inherently an approximation as a result. However, it is a very accurate approximation because those which are accounted for overwhelm all other forces. For instance, there is no need to include the influence of Saturn on a falling object on Earth to determine an accurate description of its motion. In the same way, the areas where we are closest determine the outcome: attraction, repulsion, or no influence. If we do not even know of each other, then the interaction we have results in approximately no effect. If we disagree about things, but our core values are in agreement and most at the forefront, then we will attract. If we agree about many things, but what we know about each other is only in disagreement, then we will repel, as it is those components of our individual universes which are closest that determine most how the overall interaction will play out. We can continue this process of analyzing interactions of physical objects to decipher the interactions of the mental realm. There are many traits that can be considered in expanding our awareness of this interconnectedness of all things. Magnets are not all the same strengths. In the same way, aspects of our mental universes are not all equal in strength. For example, I've spoken English for many years, and as a result, the aspect of my own mental universe that consists of my own English knowledge is larger than any other language for me personally. This is not the case for many people whose native tongue is another language. This has several different effects. Firstly, it increases my capacity to learn English. We have all learned new words due to the surrounding understood context. We can specifically look at this through the above lens to glean additional understanding. Due to the increased mass or energy of the aspect of my mental universe, which consists of my understanding of English, my capacity to pull in more information is also increased. This functions identically to a stronger magnetic field or a stronger gravitational field. We can also compare this to a plant which grows and absorbs greater amounts of sunlight due to increased surface area. If I watch a video in English on a subject I know very little about, I will still be able to pick up many things as a result of this. Alternatively, if I watch the same exact video where the only difference is it is presented in Chinese or any other language which I do not know, then I will pick up much less. This is because the aspect of my personal mental universe, which consists of all the Chinese that I know, is very small, and as a result, both its magnetic field and its gravitational field are weak and incapable of grabbing much of any information at all as it passes by. Notably, these examples are languages which provide additional insight into different forms of opposition. For a belief, opposition is much stronger than a somewhat arbitrary circumstantial language. Though it is possible for arguments to result due to language barriers, it is much more likely for confusion and a disconnect to occur. This is because the strength of a magnetic field of a language aspect of one's mental universe is generally much lower than something that is much closer to our heart. A more potent example would be adamant patriots who have extensively developed the love of their country. If two people have heavily invested energy into building their fervor for their country and even perceive the other's country's citizens negatively as a result, then this can much more easily influence their interactions so as to bring conflict than a simple language barrier can. Each of these considerations can be analyzed alone, but act only as approximations. For example, Earth comprises countless parts, and it is the sum total of their effects which produce the outcome of its overall interactions with its environment. All systems are components of larger systems in this way, as well as composed of smaller systems in the same way. We could look at a given country as the sum total of those who are within its borders, though there are always more unconsidered or unknown aspects which make the analysis inherently an approximation. However, this does not preclude the overall system from actively functioning as the actual sum total of its components, regardless of our awareness or analysis thereof. Its decisions, as a living body composed of all its constituents, are ultimately the result of the sum total of all forces it experiences. For example, if there are 100 people in a group making a decision and one person is adamantly proposing a certain course of action and the 99 others are completely complacent, neutral, then the overall effect will be that the group decides as the individual chose. If one of the 99 others was in perfect opposition, then there would be no resulting effects. For real-world situations, the interactions occur much more complexly, having many more variables to be accounted for, but the same underlying mechanic defines the outcome. In order to delve more deeply into these concepts, it is important that we have a coherent understanding of physics. Regardless of which interpretations within physics is chosen, the same process can be used to draw parallels between it and the nature of consciousness. Therefore, it is necessary to first develop a highly accurate understanding of the mechanics of the physical universe so that the parallels drawn are also accurate. If the interpretations used as a basis are invalid, then so too will the parallels drawn be invalid. The universe appears to contain order and structure within it because it does contain order and structure within it. And as a result, it is possible to jump to conclusions regarding what exactly the order and structure is that are built upon misinterpretations. If we use these conclusions to extrapolate additional meanings, these can be as incorrect as the answer of a mathematical equation where the sequence of the order of operations is not followed. Therefore, we must look back through the history of scientific deductions to pinpoint any positions where we may have lost our way.